Hello and welcome to this episode of SimplyScripts Radio. I am your host, Mike Shelton, and with me on this episode is webmaster of SimplyScripts, Don Booz, and the ever-present Pia. Michael Cornetto is also on the call, but he is behind the scenes, and I don't know if he's going to be joining in, but he might a little bit later on. Our guest tonight is the founder and administrator over at the MoviePoet website. I'm sure a lot of people from SimplyScripts are familiar with, from seeing it on the front page and everything. Like to welcome Chris Messineo. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. We are very desperate for guests, so, you just kind of fell into the pipeline.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, I guess the obvious question, to start off with things is, how did you come up with the idea for MoviePoet? And, I know it's been around for a few years, and, I mean, what was your rationale for going, you're starting out with, the 5 pages or less format versus, something a little longer, just having a general script website?
Sure. Well, really, it came out of frustration with my own experience with screenplay contests over the years. Partly with the way they were being judged, and partly with the fact that I could never see what the scripts were that were doing well. You'd enter a contest, and it just kind of went into a void, and you just kind of crossed your fingers and hoped that something happened. And I felt like I wasn't really learning anything from these contests. I was just giving money. So that was like the original impetus, was just that kind of frustration. And then as far as 5 pages, I've taught screenwriting for a while, and I know that a lot of screenwriters out there are talented, but a lot of them are not. And the nice thing about 5-page scripts is I can read anything that's 5 pages, even if it's crappy. So I knew that 5 pages would be a great way for people to learn the craft without boring the hell out of people.
And it seems to also have been a pretty good way to, get the site noticed and get things produced. I know a lot of filmmakers out there, they're looking for stuff, students or, people that are just starting out. They're looking for that shorter script that they can pick up and, something that they can film easily. Was that something that you had thought about early on, or did that just kind of fall into place on its own?
I definitely was thinking about it because I was, I'm a filmmaker as well. And I know that, getting your feature, well, most of us are getting your feature-length scripts made. For many of us, it's never going to happen. But short scripts, that's a reality. I mean, that's something that anyone can make happen. There are so many independent filmmakers out there. And so the fact that, like you said, that we have this, sort of database now of over 1,500 5-page scripts, is really starting to bring a lot of filmmakers to the site and getting a lot of our scripts made, which is great for a first-time writer to see your work, come to life on the screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, I noticed too that, I know eventually you guys started to, you branch out and, you were doing some kind of it was a feature contest, right? Where you start out with, was it a log line, and then you went to the first act and kind of branched out from there. I don't know if I had all the specifics down, but I believe it was something related to features.
Right. Yeah. After the site was, up and going strong for about 2 years, we added, a feature-length contest, but wanted to do something a little different than what's out there right now. And I wanted to try and mimic a little bit of what goes on in the real world. So it's a 3-phase feature-length contest. So that first phase, you enter a log line, and those get reviewed. And then if enough people think your log line is interesting, basically just like if a reader or an agency was interested in your log line, then you get to submit your script. But they're pretty much only going to look at the first 10 pages. So that's what we do in the second round. You submit your first 10 pages, and if your first 10 pages are interesting to people, then you move on to the third round where you get to submit your feature-length script. And what's kind of neat about it is that in the end, when we are reading feature-length scripts, we're reading feature-length scripts by writers who have already proven that they have an intriguing idea and the talent to tell a compelling first 10 pages. And that's been pretty successful. So now we're in the middle of our second year of it.
Good. I mean, it definitely seems to be, picking up and stuff like that. Have you ever gone anything shorter than 1 month from the time that you release the this genre or subject or whatever it is, until the actual time the script is due?
No, I thought about it. I thought about trying to do some sort of crunch weekend or some other kind of, but honestly, it would be a programming nightmare. And additionally, I have enough trouble explaining the current system to the new members, so I think throwing a curveball in there is apt to make people insane.
So you're saying a programming nightmare. I mean, is everything on the site basically fully automated as far as submissions and things like that go?
It's astoundingly automated. In fact, I don't know who's written what script when it comes in. There's basically no moderation needed other than, making sure that the entries are actually PDFs and, making sure at the end of the month I do a quick check to make sure I have a bunch of sort of reports that get generated that help me determine if anyone's trying to sort of game the system. But other than that, it runs entirely on its own.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with MoviePoet, and then, on the SimplyScripts side, we have the 1 week challenge that comes around like every 3-4 months, and that's usually, anywhere from, 12 to 15 pages, and the genre and theme are announced, and, whoever wants to enter, they have a week to get their script in, and then they get submitted, Don posts them and stuff like that. So, Don does a lot of legwork from that aspect, once the scripts go into his inbox. So, the automated process is actually pretty fascinating. I guess, we have, Don and Pia here. I'm sure they have questions, so, I'm going to open it up to, them to, get in and say what they want to say. Anybody, Don, Pia, who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Okay. Well, I have to say, okay. Well, I have to say that I actually do remember how this all started, because I was, I can't remember now if it was 3 or 4 or I don't know, 5 years ago. It was like at, New York City midnight, whatever thing. Yep. And I think it was a bit of frustration there that maybe, spurred this thing. If I'm not correct, just let me know. Okay.
You're correct.
Yeah. And so I think I was one of, your first members, because a lot of us that took part in that contest, we kind of jumped on your thing, and I think you have done a really, really, really great job on it, and I absolutely love the anonymity of it. I don't even know how many scripts I have submitted, but
14.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have to say, the anonymity of it, makes a big difference. Okay. And when we do the 1 week challenge at SimplyScripts, we do try to keep, who wrote what, anonymous and this and that. And because I do think that people tend to be more honest when they don't know who wrote what and this and that. And I know that not just myself, but other people too, they are kind of shocked the first time that they read their comments, because they're like, you submit this little 5-pager thingy, and in my case, they're usually written on the last hour or something, and then you think, oh, that was pretty good, and then you get the comments, it's like, whoa, you have like 40 comments, and it's like, it's sort of like getting cold water splashed into your face, But
sometimes.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that a lot of people have a hard time with that honesty. What do you think?
Well, I agree 100%. First, I'm a huge fan of anonymity, for several reasons. I prefer it when I'm reviewing. I don't want to know whose script I'm reviewing. I don't want to have to worry about, is this someone who's supposed to be really talented? Is this someone, it's their first script? Is this someone who's been running for years? I just want to be able to judge a story honestly. And too often I see on websites and forums where you can tell people are uncomfortable reviewing scripts for their friends. I remember early on in MoviePoet, I had entered a script, and one of the other mods had written about my script that I had needed to work on my dialogue. And then afterwards, when they saw that it was my script, they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. If I'd known it was your script." I said, "No, that's exactly why it has to be anonymous, because I don't want people treating me with kid gloves because of who they think I am or what they think I've done." I mean, that's the beauty of the anonymousness. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?